Welcome to this retrospective slash review for Sonic CD. Let me go ahead and get a couple of caveats out of the way as far as this version of the game is concerned. And the first and major uh, difference here is the fact that you cannot purchase this particular version of Sonic CD any longer from the Steam store. I think you might be able to get it on your mobile device, whether it be Android or iOS. It should theoretically still be available there. But as far as Steam is concerned and PC players are concerned, you have to buy the Sonic Origins collection to get a version of Sonic CD. It's not exactly this version. However, having said that, the version that you see in Sonic Origins, or the engine, I should say, which I believe they call it the Retro engine, is basically you see one of the relatively early builds of that engine here in this version of the game that I played. So if you like a lot of what you're seeing here in the background or some of my other playthroughs, basically it's a very similar setup to what you'll see in Sonic Origins. Only not only is it applied to Sonic CD, it's also applied to Sonic 1, 2, and 3 as well. So that's something to keep in mind. And I would believe the engine is improved, because one of the negatives I would like to point out about this particular version of the engine is it just didn't work correctly in full screen mode. It was just going way too fast for me, and I had to use Special K, which is a frame limiter program. And that, fortunately, because of my recent modding experience with other games, I knew to use that, and it worked very well for me. But for someone who may not be familiar with some of these modding tools, that may be an obstacle to getting this particular version of the game up and running. Now, having said that, you could run it in a window or a windowed mode, and that did seem to work, but I don't believe that's the ideal way of playing this game. So full screen with Special K was how I got it running, and because you had to go through a little extra steps to get it up and running, there you got to knock a little bit off of the final score of the game. But let me go ahead and instead of focusing on negatives, let's focus on some of the positives that this game has to offer. So if you enjoyed Sonic 1, and I did, then I think you will definitely enjoy this particular Sonic game. Now, my experience with the Sonic games is still relatively limited at this point, but I did enjoy playing this game quite a bit. Now, the playthrough I did was probably one of the longest ways of going around and playing the game, getting all the roboticizers and the Metal Sonic holograms in every level. So I actually spent a very large amount of time exploring each and every stage. And of course, you also have to get enough speed to knock yourself to the past so that you can do those things to basically get a good future in each of the levels. So yeah, definitely the way I did it is probably the longest and relatively most tedious way of playing the game. However, I will say I very much like the fact that they give you more than one way of getting the good ending, basically. So the way I did it is definitely more tedious. However, that is a method that is completely and totally in your hands, and it's a lot more reliable than, say, doing the special stages. Now, I do believe the special stages are a little bit better in this game than they were in Sonic the Hedgehog 1, at least in my personal opinion. However, it's still not perfect, to say the least, for lack of better words. They can be a little bit finicky, to say the least. Now, one of the things you could do if you were emulating Sonic the Hedgehog 1 is you could set a save state up before you did any of the special stages. Well, you don't have to do that here, but having said that, the game basically does an autosave every time you complete a level. And one of the nice things is even after completing the level, it doesn't autosave for you at the special stage, but you have to be very on your toes. So like if your time in that special stage drops to like less than 10 seconds, you got to be very quick to hit the start button so that you can go back to the main menu. Because unlike a save state, if you complete the special stage, even on accident, and you can do it very easily by falling in the water, then it automatically saves, and you're kind of screwed out of a chance to get the time stones. So, long story short, I do like the fact that there's two different ways of getting a good ending, and it's a little bit less up to chance, basically, if you do it yourself with the exploration method compared to trying to get the time stones method. So that's a really neat aspect of the game. And personally, I do believe that the exploration and everything in this game was very well done. I really enjoy playing the game. It's, I mean, it's just basically Sonic 1 only turned up to 11, basically. It's a very, very good game. And now, I did, admittedly, was not too familiar with some of the moves. I didn't realize that I did know fairly early on you could hit down and the jump button to do a spin dash or spin ball, whatever you want to call it. But I didn't realize you could do up and jump to do an actual speed to actually get you going faster, running faster. Had I known that, that might have, or maybe if I had paid attention a little bit more to the instructions, basically, I would have known that, and I would basically been able to pull off certain things a little bit better than I did initially in my first playthrough. But that, comes with part of the territory of learning a new game. So overall, I still think that Sonic controls very well. I mean, it's not a very complicated game from a control perspective. And if anything, I do think he does control better in this game than he did in the first Sonic the Hedgehog. So that's a definite plus there. The graphics, personally, I felt they were very colorful and pretty. They still hold up to this day. And obviously, the version that I played is not the same as the original Sonic CD because this was in 1080p, but it looked great. I tried two different filters. I tried the default smooth filter and the nostalgia filter, and maybe my eyes just aren't very good. I didn't really notice a lot of differences between either version of the graphics, basically, but it's still, both filters looked really good. I didn't try the sharp filter, so maybe that one is different, but smooth and nostalgia both looked very good to me. Soundtrack. This definitely has a very, very good soundtrack. And the fact that you have both the Japanese and the US soundtracks available to choose is a very awesome feature to this game. Having said that, there was one channel that kind of did a little bit of comparison of the Japanese to the US soundtracks. I believe that YouTube channel is King Meteor, if I'm not mistaken. It was a good comparison if you want to see a comparison of the two soundtracks side by side. And one of the things I think I noticed, if I'm not mistaken, is that a lot of the voices from the Japanese soundtrack seem to be removed from this version of the game. I'm not really sure why they did that. It looks like the US soundtrack was, fully intact with all the singing and voices that were in the original US soundtrack. But the Japanese soundtrack in this game seems to have all of the music intact, but none of the voices and whatnot that were there. Seems a bit of a strange decision. Personally, I mean, the half Japanese, some English lyrics that they had in some of the songs that I saw in some of his videos, it kind of reminded me of watching Dragon Ball, which if I'm not mistaken, I think the same company who did the animation for Dragon Ball also did the animation for some of the movies, so which would explain why it looks a lot like Dragon Ball. to a certain extent. Um, but I personally like the half mostly Japanese with little English tidbits thrown in. So I don't know why they took it out. It just kind of reminds me of what, like I said, watching Dragon Ball with subtitles. So that's a curious decision. But at the end of the day, both soundtracks are actually quite amazing, very good, uh, very much improved basically over the first Sonic the Hedgehog. And I thought that game had a very good soundtrack. So a huge, uh, kudos to this game for probably having one of the best soundtracks around. A lot of people say that this soundtrack is probably one of their favorite Sonic soundtracks. So I don't know for a certain or whatnot because I haven't heard any of the other ones, but I could get behind that for sure. So yeah, definitely graphics are improved, sound is improved, control I did like I said I felt it was improved. Special stages slightly improved, still a little bit of a headache to say the least. But to be fair, I did go back and I started playing this game quite a bit, and I've gotten every achievement in the game minus one, which is the do the time attack mode in less than 25 minutes. So I think my time that I'm currently sitting at is about 32 minutes, give or take. So I'm pretty close to hitting that final achievement of the game. I just need to tune up a few of the levels that I did, probably Collision Chaos. And that's the thing, is like when I went back and played through the game a second time, trying to get all the time stones, you know, you can't just rush through the game to try and do that because you still want to have enough rings to basically trigger the special stage as you see there. So you don't have to do as much exploring to do the time stones, but there is still going to be a little bit of take it a bit slow and don't just rush right through. If you want to rush right through, that's what time attack is for. And yeah, I mean, a lot of the stages you can just speed right the heck through them. It's actually pretty impressive. Some of the stages I didn't think that I would be able to just rush through very quickly, like Tidal Tempest, the underwater one. I actually did get through quite a bit of those zones in like a minute or just over a minute. So that's, a little pat on the back to myself for that, basically. Um, I think that maybe Collision Chaos and or Wacky Workbench are probably my two least favorite levels. But even still, I think those levels are, not bad. And I think some of my misgivings to coming into this game is because I would see some people talk about how bad the level design was in this game, and I personally don't feel that the level design is bad. I think it's actually pretty decent and pretty extensive. Being able to have a past, present, and future spin on each of the levels. It's unique and it's quite cool actually. So at the end of the day, yeah, I definitely like the game, and this I do believe this is the version that you'll get a better version technically in Sonic Origins, and if that's the case, then this game actually this is a good advertisement for that version of the game. So I actually I don't know if I'm planning on getting Sonic Origins anytime soon, but it is something I would consider in the future. Unfortunately, this particular version, like I said, unless you get it on your phone, there's no way to get this particular version available, and I personally wouldn't recommend barely anything on mobile. But that's just that's my own personal preference there. But yeah, I enjoyed Sonic CD. It was a new experience for me, and it was good. Um, and I can't say that it was overly frustrating. Even some of the harder achievements to get, like beat Metal Sonic without um, getting hit, that was just kind of satisfying when I finally pulled it off. But even that really wasn't super difficult to do, and I did it in probably about 20 minutes or so, give or take. But that's not too bad, all things considered. So it's, it's a good game. It's not frustrating. And, it's definitely worth your time, and you'll get a pretty decent amount of playthrough through it for it, basically. So, yeah, if you are considering getting Sonic Origins, and if you don't have a copy of Sonic CD anyway, then that may be something I could definitely wholeheartedly recommend to you. And as far as my personal thoughts on Sonic CD, I think I would give this a 90%. It was a very good game. I mean, like I said, not without its flaws, especially with the frame rate issue and the special stages. But at the end of the day, I had a really good time playing this game, and still playing the game. Not that I have a lot left to do, but it's definitely a very fun time, and well worth well worth it if you've never played it. If you're one of the few people in the world that like me who's never played a lot of these Sonic games, so definitely give Sonic CD a try. Track down Sonic Origins, which, oddly enough, at this point in time, is actually on sale with Steam. I think it just started today, basically. What are the odds? Anyway, that'll do it for this video. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Take care.